Have you ever looked at a pile of trash and thought, there's nothing here worth saving? Well, think again. Because in today's video, we're turning discarded bottles, broken doors, and coconut shells into garden magic you won't believe. From tiny yards to charming backyard corners, these trash-to-treasure transformations are proof that beauty can bloom from the most unexpected places. Welcome to Verdant Dreams, where waste becomes wonder, and every project tells a story. This video is packed with ideas and timestamps, so feel free to skip around and find exactly what inspires you. Got a question? Drop it in the comments. Love what you see? Don't just scroll past. Try it. Make it yours. And hey, I know, to you, maybe I'm just another voice in the void. But behind this content is a real person, a real family, and a real dream. This isn't just a video. It's a piece of who I am. And every like, every comment, every subscribe, helps more than you know. When you tap that subscribe button, you're not just helping a creator. You're keeping a small dream alive. Thanks for watching. Thanks for believing. In a quiet corner of a small backyard, where the light filters gently through layers of fall foliage, a fence tells a story. Not just of boundaries, but of transformation. Here, color-washed bottles, once discarded, once trash, now sing in the sunlight. Each one, painted by hand, dances with the wind and glows like stained glass under the changing skies of autumn. This is not just a garden. It's a memory woven into every upcycled edge. The soft chime of glass tapping gently in the breeze brings a rhythm to the air, as if nature itself is whispering thank you. Marigolds nod beneath them, their bright orange heads catching sunlight and reflecting it back through the glass. Asters and mums fill in the gaps with bursts of pink and gold. Sedum stretches gently at the borders, grounding the scene in sturdy beauty. Children point to the sparkling bottles as they pass by. Guests pause, enchanted by the handmade harmony of colors. It's not about perfection, each bottle is slightly different, irregular, uniquely shaped. That's what makes them beautiful. It reminds us that the old and overlooked can find new purpose in the right light. In this patio sanctuary, space is limited, but imagination is boundless. The fence becomes a canvas. The colors become a language, and the ordinary becomes art. Painted glass against a rustic backdrop, blooms against wood, and the constant hum of life, that's what makes this tiny garden unforgettable. It's a vision not crafted with money, but with intention, heart, and a splash of leftover paint. When the sun sets, and the fairy lights above the bottles flicker on, this fence transforms again, into a glowing crown above a garden made with love. There's something magical about a door that leads to nowhere and everywhere. In a humble backyard space where space is measured in feet, not acres, two vintage doors now rise like quiet guardians, weathered and beautiful, forming an archway that frames more than just a garden. It frames a moment, a mood, a memory. These doors, once forgotten in an old farmhouse shed, have been given a second life. Brushed with layers of soft color, whispers of green, faded white, or sun-warmed yellow, they welcome every visitor like an open invitation to step into something softer. Around their feet bloom marigolds in molten gold, chrysanthemums in bursts of rust and pink, and anemones climbing slowly up their sides as if they, too, long to be part of the story. Walk through this archway and you enter another rhythm. The hum of bees, the sway of petals in a gentle breeze, the scent of damp earth mixed with late-season herbs. It feels like stepping into a forgotten poem, one written not with words, but with wood and flowers and time. Each scratch on the door tells a story. Each peeling edge of paint, a reminder that beauty doesn't come from perfection, but from presence. Evenings feel slower here. Mornings feel lighter. And under the curve of that handmade arch, framed by blooms and sky, the world feels just a bit more open. No grand gate is needed. Just a door, a beam, a few screws, and the courage to imagine. In return, you get a portal, not to another place, but to a better way of seeing your own. And when twilight comes, and the air cools with the quiet hush of fall, this arch becomes a silhouette against the golden sky. A reminder that even the most ordinary things, an old door, a small yard, can become something timeless when rooted in love and creativity. Tucked beneath the eaves of a pergola where vines curl like poetry around weathered beams, a soft glow flickers. It doesn't come from electric bulbs or polished lanterns, but from humble halves of coconut shells, each cradling its own golden flame. These candle bowls, shaped by nature and refined by hand, bring a grounded beauty to the garden. The shells, smoothed and cleaned, retain the memory of tropical origins, now reimagined as vessels of light in an autumn garden. No two are the same, some deeper, some wider, but all hold the same quiet magic when evening falls. The wax inside carries gentle hints of herbs, citronella to ward off the dusk mosquitoes, lavender to ease the mind. And as the flames dance, they throw a warmth that cannot be replicated, a living shimmer that moves with the air, speaks to the soul. Around them, fall flowers bloom in their fullness. Marigolds in golden crowns, sedum in dusky reds, Japanese anemones swaying like soft whispers. The pergola, though modest in size, becomes a sacred space. A corner for stillness. A place where memories can rest and breath can deepen. Guests pause longer here. Some lean in to smell the herbal scent. Others just close their eyes for a moment, feeling the peace that radiates from such a small, simple source. That's the secret of the coconut shell candle bowl. It doesn't demand attention, it draws it. It doesn't shout, it hums. It turns a forgotten scrap of nature into a vessel of comfort and light. And in doing so, it reminds us that warmth doesn't need grandeur, just intention. As twilight deepens and the wind begins to whisper through the pergola beams, the candles keep glowing. Soft, steady, grounded. Like the garden itself, handmade, upcycled, and full of soul. In the smallest corners of a garden, where a patch of grass meets a trail of soil, where a flower bed curves gently against a wall, there lies the perfect space for magic. And sometimes, that magic begins with a bottle. Once discarded, now redeemed, these junk bottles have been gathered, washed, and dressed in color. Dipped in hues of honey yellow, sage green, ocean blue, and pale lilac, they no longer whisper of what they once held. They speak instead of possibility, of how even a scrap of glass can become art. Lined up neck first into the soil, they create the softest of garden barriers. A winding edge that gently separates lawn from bloom, structure from wildness. Their rhythm guides the eye, drawing attention to the flowers they cradle, marigolds glowing like tiny suns, asters in lavender flames, sedum holding the weight of fall with dignity. There's a tactile joy in this edging. The smooth glass, the pop of color against dark earth, the way sunlight glints off the curved surfaces in morning and late afternoon. Children reach out to touch them. Guests bend low to see how they're fixed. And the gardener, the artist behind it all, smiles. Because in this tiny yard, nothing is wasted. Here, the constraint of space breeds creativity. Old bottles that once lay in bins now guard the blooms. They don't just edge the garden, they define it. They remind us that beauty doesn't always come from what we buy, but from what we rescue, revive, and reimagine. As seasons shift and flowers come and go, the bottle edging remains. A chorus of color and glass singing softly through the months, anchoring the ever-changing garden in joy, in color, and in story. Sometimes, all it takes to shape a garden is a single door, worn, wooden, perhaps forgotten. In this backyard corner where shadows fall gently and the breeze smells of soil and seasons, an old door stands once again. Not as a barrier, but as a beginning. Painted softly in hues of time, faded mint, whispering white, or sunset terracotta, the door holds memory in its grain. It leans gracefully against the fence, weathered but proud. In front of it, a potting table rises like a workbench for dreams. Clay pots wait patiently, filled with fresh soil and hope. A rusty trowel rests on the edge. A watering can, dented but loyal, catches the last of the sunlight. This is not a grand space. The yard is small, the sky framed by vines and pergola beams. But here, purpose blooms. Around the door, marigolds glow with warmth. Mums cluster like quiet lanterns. Japanese anemones flutter as if greeting the gardener's hand. The door becomes a canvas, one side holding tools on handmade hooks, the other hosting old drawers repurposed as planter boxes. There's no perfection here. Only honesty. Only heart. Neighbors passing by might miss it entirely. But those who enter feel the shift. This is where seeds become stories. Where every scrape of the door and every dent in the bench holds the touch of time and care. A small chalkboard sign reads, "Plant dreams here." And indeed, they do. Because in this tiny cottage garden, the old becomes anchor. The potting nook isn't just practical, it's poetic. It speaks of slow mornings and muddy fingers, of planting spring in the chill of autumn. It's a corner that says, you don't need more, just love what you already have. And as the sun begins to dip behind the fence, casting long golden beams through the fading blooms, the door stands firm. Silent, simple, sacred. In the heart of a small backyard, where autumn leaves scatter like confetti and the air carries the quiet hush of the season, stands a gazebo, a simple wooden frame turned sanctuary. What makes it sing, though, isn't just the structure. It's the way it holds the sky through glass. Suspended from its beams are bottles, each once discarded, each now transformed. Glass, tinted by hand in soft shades of blue, green, and honey pink, hangs gently on twine. And inside each bottle, a flower lives. Not arranged in formal bouquets, but standing tall, wild, proud. One stem per bottle, as if to let each bloom speak for itself. They sway with the wind. The marigolds nod like lanterns. The chrysanthemums beam in soft orange. Anemones reach outward as if trying to touch the drifting clouds above. Sunlight filters through the tinted glass, painting colored shadows on the wooden floor below. Everything feels alive, even when still. It's a space that doesn't ask for perfection. The bottles are mismatched, the twine rough. But together, they form a gentle chorus, a whisper of beauty, simplicity, and care. Guests step into the gazebo and pause. Their gaze lifts to the hanging bottles, and smiles bloom without effort. In the evening, as golden light softens and cool breezes rustle the petals, the hanging vases take on new life. Lit from behind by fading sun or soft string lights, they glow like floating jewels. The garden hums, and the gazebo becomes a nest of color and calm. This is upcycling not just for function, but for soul. These bottles, saved from oblivion, now cradle life. These flowers, chosen with intention, now dance freely. In a world that often rushes, this rustic corner reminds us to pause, to look up, to appreciate what can grow from what we once overlooked. And in that stillness, surrounded by hanging blooms and crisp fall air, even the smallest gazebo becomes a cathedral of color and light. When the wind moves through a garden, it speaks in many voices, the rustle of leaves, the brush of petals, the soft creak of bamboo. But here, beneath a simple trellis made from slender stalks tied with care, a new sound joins the chorus, the hollow, gentle song of coconut shells touching in the breeze. This trellis, grown not from hardware stores but from intention, frames a quiet passage. Above it, vines twist and flowers bloom. Below, soft dirt paths guide footsteps slowly. And from its center, wind chimes made from reclaimed coconut shells sway with quiet grace. Each shell is shaped by nature and refined by hand. Some are polished smooth, others left raw, bearing the grain and curve of the tree that bore them. Tied together with twine, raffia, or wire, they dangle freely. And when the wind stirs them, they answer, not with clangs or chimes, but with earthy, hollow notes that soothe more than they startle. They sing without needing to be loud, just enough to make you stop, tilt your head, and smile. Around the trellis, color flourishes. Sedum glows in red and rust. Anemones lean into the breeze. Marigolds beam up at the chimes like old friends reunited. This isn't a grand garden. It's a small sanctuary. But in this corner, there's rhythm. There's memory. Perhaps the shells came from a family picnic, or were saved from the kitchen with no purpose in mind. But here, they have become part of something larger, a celebration of texture, sound, and stillness. Even when silent, they hold presence. As twilight paints the garden in deepening tones, the chimes continue their slow, meditative murmur. Guests who pass through linger longer than expected. Children reach up to feel the curves. The gardener pauses, closes their eyes, and listens, not just to the chimes, but to everything. In a world that spins too fast, this bamboo trellis and its coconut shell song remind us to move gently, to reuse with heart, to create beauty where none was expected. There's a quiet strength in old doors. Once keepers of privacy, now they stand shoulder to shoulder in a garden, not to close off, but to gently divide. Worn by years, softened by time, these reclaimed doors have become more than salvage, they've become storytellers. In this small backyard, space is precious. Each corner must serve, must sing. And here, along the winding edge of the flower bed, a row of doors rises, each with its own past, its own color, its own grain. Painted in pale tones that mirror faded skies, washed whites, muted greens, dusty blues, they lean slightly, like old friends in conversation. At their feet, asters rise in riotous bloom. Lavender, violet, and soft white blossoms cluster tightly, reaching toward the wood as if drawn by memory. Their petals flicker in the breeze, catching sunlight and casting shadows that dance across the aged panels. This divider doesn't cut the space, it defines it. One side holds a reading chair nestled among vines. The other, a burst of perennials in full fall flourish. There's no fence here, no wall, just a graceful reminder that spaces, like people, can be gently separated without being isolated. Guests wander through and pause. Some touch the knobs still attached to the doors, others crouch to admire the asters. The scent of mums drifts on the air, mingling with damp earth and weathered wood. It's not grand. It's not precise. But it's unforgettable. Each door whispers stories of homes it once belonged to. Now, in this garden, it gets to breathe again. It stands not for closure, but for openness, framed in flowers and bathed in light. As golden hour spreads across the yard and the asters catch fire with color, the door divider becomes something more, a boundary that invites, a structure that holds both space and soul. Sometimes, the most inspiring gardens grow not from the ground, but from the walls that hold them. In this tiny backyard, a simple wooden fence becomes a vertical field of scent and purpose, lined not with plastic pots or designer containers, but with humble bottles reborn as vessels of life. Each bottle, once cast aside, is now mounted with care, cleaned, trimmed, painted in tones of olive green, soft clay, and dusty rose. They gleam faintly in the sunlight, their bellies filled with rich soil and sprigs of green. Rosemary stretches upward like fingers. Thyme trails gently like whispers. Mint bursts out like laughter. This is a wall of flavor, of fragrance, of function. More than just decor, it's alive. And what makes it beautiful isn't symmetry or style, but soul. Every bottle is slightly different, every herb planted with a gentle hand, every bracket fastened by someone who understands that beauty can live in the smallest space. Beneath the fence, fall flowers bloom, a row of orange marigolds, a cluster of asters, a patch of sedum heavy with autumn color. They form a soft border, a floral echo to the green above. Butterflies float through. Bees visit. The air is thick with the mingling scents of herb and bloom. There's a rhythm to tending this wall. A watering can tip slowly. A leaf pinched and crushed between fingers to release its essence. A smile as a neighbor leans over and asks, "What's that one called?" And in the golden hush of late afternoon, when the shadows stretch long and the bottles catch the final warmth of sun, the whole fence glows, like a lantern made of earth and glass and intention. This is the power of the simple, the joy of reuse, the magic of planting not just seeds, but stories. In one sun-dappled corner of the backyard, often overlooked by grown-up eyes, lies a magical space where gardens meet imagination. It's here, in a patch just big enough for small hands and big dreams, that coconut shells come to life. Not just shells anymore, they've become animals, gentle, joyful creatures with painted smiles and wide, curious eyes. Frogs with leafy hair. Owls with chrysanthemums for feathers. Turtles bearing blooms on their backs. Each one crafted lovingly from half a coconut shell, sanded smooth, painted in bright childlike colors, and planted with hardy autumn flowers that thrive in the changing seasons. These little pots line the border of a kid's garden nook. Around them, the air smells of earth and marigold. Butterflies drift lazily above. A wooden sign nearby reads, "Little Garden Friends," hand-painted with uneven letters and tiny fingerprints. It's not just decoration, it's a memory-taking route. The children visit daily. They water with tiny cans. They talk to the pots. Some name them. Some bring rocks or sticks as gifts. And as the seasons shift, they learn the patience of planting, the joy of growth, the gentle passing of blooms into seed. This isn't a grand garden design. It's a tender one. A space where creativity and care grow side by side. The coconut shell pots are sturdy, safe, and full of personality. And their small size makes them perfect for little gardeners to care for on their own. The surrounding flowers, asters, sedum, and Japanese anemones, wrap the space in texture and color. The breeze carries stories from shell to leaf. And in this little living classroom, wonder blooms just as surely as the petals. As the sun dips low and shadows stretch long, the animal pots remain watchful, whimsical, and waiting for tiny hands to return tomorrow. Because here, even the smallest garden can hold the biggest magic.